Hey guys, how are you all beautiful people? Hope all of you are doing fine. And yes, this is next part of Godlike Hokage in Naruto. The Gura Gura no Mi is known as the strongest fruit in the world of One Piece. In Naruto world, the blood limit would grant the strongest power for those ninjas. But what if the Gura Gura no Mi is found in the world of Naruto and after it is eaten it will be like a blood limit power? Well, the MC just took that fruit. This story begins before the Second Ninja War by 2 years. So let's start without any delay. Boom! The sound of the hit was so strong, it seemed like a roar, and the rock wall got smashed. It didn't even turn into pieces, but it directly got turned into powder. The ninjas in the rear couldn't even move, their bodies were shaking seeing this scene. Naito didn't stop and rushed toward the third ninja. Then the fourth, then the fifth. The only thing they could see was Naito's shadow flashing here, then flashing there, tearing the space and the ground. And the only thing they could do was getting crushed in front of Naito's power. Finally, only a few of them remained. This situation is completely different than what they've imagined. Even if they were still outnumbering the enemies, it was still difficult to fight against Naito. Even if they joined forces and cast a strong ninjutsu, Naito will only need one punch to destroy everything. And even if they want to ignore Naito and target Tsunade at the back, they wouldn't be able to do it. Naito wouldn't give them that chance. At that moment, the only person strong enough between them is the special Anbu from the Rock Village, who was a master of both fire and earth releases. He's the only one who has the strength to barely fight against Naito. As for the others, they could only assist him, even though they were Jonins. Lava release, scorching stream rock. The Anbu didn't hesitate to use one of his strongest techniques. The previous scene made him understand that he shouldn't underestimate Naito. And the only choice he has is fighting. Escaping is impossible. He saw Naito's speed, and there's no way he can outspeed him. It's impossible to turn his back and run. Bang! The Anbu opened his mouth, and suddenly molten rocks of lava expelled out toward Naito. Naito with a calm expression waved his sword, and suddenly the magma ball split into 2 halves. But the Anbu didn't stop there, he continued on sending more and more magma balls until it filled the sky. Fire release, fire dragon bomb. Wind release, wind explosion. Earth release, ground bedrock. The other ninjas didn't just stand there, they all cast other ninjutsus to assist the Anbu. Suddenly, the magma balls were expelling directly toward Naito while the wind release changed both their direction and speed, spreading them in every direction. Even the rainy weather of the rain village couldn't extinguish the lava, it was steaming the rain, the heat was extremely high. Moreover, the ground under Naito's feet started moving, then pushed him above toward the magma balls. Facing this attack, Naito's expression didn't change, it was as calm as ever. Naito grabbed his sword with one hand, and clenched the other. His chakra was flowing. These scene and chakra were very familiar. Is this the brutal force technique? Without hesitating, Naito slammed the space with his fist. Crack! Suddenly, space got cracked. The whole sky turned into a broken mirror by Naito's technique. The crack started to spread out until they've reached the enemy's technique. Whether it was wind or magma, they all got hit by Naito's attack. But as always, this attack didn't have any chance against Naito's shocks. In the end, they all got destroyed. It was like a meteor's falling from the sky, and Naito destroyed it with only one punch. At that moment, Naito was still clenching his fist while he was holding his sword with the other hand, but this move only made everyone horrified. Suddenly, and out of the blue, Naito threw his sword toward one of them. Whoosh! At high speed the Kusanagi sword was flying toward him. Under this horrifying scene, the ninja dodged it. But what he didn't expect was how the sword changed his direction toward him, then stabbed as if it was alive. Naito was watching from a distance. It was natural that he could control the Kusanagi sword. At the same time, Naito didn't stop, but he rushed toward another one. Punch! Boom! The body of the ninja exploded, but it was a rock clone. Seeing that it was only a rock clone, Naito's expression didn't change. Instead, he didn't care, and kicked the ground with his leg. Shock release, ground motion. Bang! The shocks start moving toward the ground, and the ground started cracking and shaking. Suddenly, 10 meters away from Naito, a ninja vomited blood. Looking at him, Naito coldly ended his life with a punch. Boom! The others didn't have time to help, and they could only watch their ally getting killed by Naito. At the same time, the ninja who got stabbed by the Kusanagi sword was so angry that he could barely avoid such attack. Damn! The special Anbu couldn't help but notice Naito's sword the moment he threw it and used that technique. Suddenly, he moved and rushed toward him while he was printing hand seals. Lave release, lava river. Whoosh! From his feet, he expelled lava liquid and the whole ground got filled with lava flow. The truth is, he didn't want to use this technique. It consumes a lot of chakra, and also it targets his companions since they won't have any place to stand on if they weren't behind him. But they were already losing. It's now or never. What? Naito's brow slightly moved. This lava is really dangerous. Naito with a simple move shocked the ground under him with his feet. Bang! The lava flow and the shocks collided and blocked each other. Of course, he won't let it approach him. Watching how Naito blocked his technique, the Anbu's eyes flashed and rushed toward him. Lava release, lava fists. Suddenly, the special Anbu clenched his fist and turned to a magma-like fist, then fired out a punch. Boom! It was a simple move, a simple punch, but the effect was so different. The special Anbu's hand was covered with lava. It turned to a huge fist, then he slammed it toward Naito. The lava fist and the lava river. He cast two techniques. It seemed too hard to be blocked by Naito. However, looking at this scene, Naito laughed. Interesting. It looked like he finally found a worthy opponent. Lava and shocks, which one will be stronger? Naito didn't know the answer to this question. He didn't even want to know the answer. He just wanted to defeat the Anbu in front of him, then everything will turn out to be fine. Bang! The ground under Naito's feet started to crack horribly due to his power. And the lava river flew directly into those cracks. At the same time, Naito clenched his fist, then he punched the huge lava fist in front of him without any hesitation or fear. None of the two fists looked like they are gonna lose against each other, but suddenly the entire space started to crack. The lava fist didn't break or lose. It looked like it's gonna destroy Naito's fist, but in the end, it got destroyed. Damn! The Anbu bit his teeth the moment he saw this scene. Without any hesitation, he tried to gather his chakra again, to strike one more time. However, this time, Naito jumped directly in the air and struck him from above. But he didn't give up. Seeing that white glowing fist trying to strike him from the sky like a falling star, he clenched his fist. Lava release, super lava fist. Knowing that he didn't have any chance to escape, desperately the Anbu gathered all of his chakra into this one last attack. Oh! The next moment, his arm got covered with lava and turned into a giant arm covering the sky. While he was standing below that arm, Naito, who was falling from the sky compared to that giant fist, looked like a moth. However, Naito didn't have any fear in his heart, and suddenly, his momentum changed. With his current strength, his old techniques were no longer simple moves. Dan! Naito shouted the name of his technique and sent a cannon of pressured air toward that giant fist. Boom! Under the power of this technique, the giant arm started to break and crack, until it finally collapsed. After all, Naito is one of the strongest shinobis in this war. With his current power, the simplest moves are a lot stronger than any other high-ranked ninjutsus. Even a shinobi with a special blood limit wouldn't be worthy to be his opponent. Boom! The power of his technique was so strong, Naito was falling slowly toward the ground like he had wings on his back. Crack! The lava river on the ground got hardly blasted by the enormous power of the Dan technique. The ground was shaking so hard even after the technique effect was over. The Anbu was looking at this scene. And one thing was in his mind. How could he be this strong? There's no doubt about it, he's a blood limit user. I'm afraid that there's no one but the Tsushikage himself who can defeat him in the Rock Village. At the last moment before his death, the Anbu had a very sad expression. After all, his lava release, who was so proud of, wasn't even compared to Naito's blood limit. Finally, the flow of the lava river stopped, and turned into hard rocks. In the rear, because of the lava river technique, the last two shinobis of the rocks needed to fall back. They didn't help but noticing the fear in each other's eyes. Then without any hesitation, they start running. Looking at this scene, Naito shook his head slightly. He already decided to destroy them all, and he would never break his vows. He extended his hand, and the Tsunade sword flew directly toward him. He held it tight, then he directly dashed toward them at high speed. After a few flashed, he caught up to one of them, then waved his sword. The Shinboy wanted to use a body clone, but Naito didn't leave him any chance to do that. And at the last second, Naito killed him. Naito turned directly toward the last one, who was running in the other direction, and waved his sword, sending a shocking sword energy toward him. Bang! He was so far away so there wasn't any chance for Naito to catch up to him, but the Shokuha technique covered that distance so easily. The dead man turned around and tried to block it. Although the power of the technique wasn't enough to kill him due to the long distance, yet it was enough to slow him down, since he decided to block it instead of running away from it, and this decision decided his whole fate. The shinobi got seriously injured, which made it so easy for Naito to kill him. Barely blocked the Shokuha technique, the shinobi couldn't move anymore. Naito was already in front of him. Looking at Naito holding his Tsunade sword in front of him, his heart sunk into fear and despair, but he wanted to know the answer. The answer to the question that everyone who was killed in this battlefield wanted to ask. You. Who are you? Are you the captain of the Anbu? I'm an Anbu from the Special Force Squad of Konoha, the code name is Yuyin. Naito's expression didn't change, yet he felt a little bit emotional, so he answered the shinobi's question, then he waved his sword. The days where he was weak are over now. He can even kill a whole army now. Of course, as long as this army doesn't have any kind of people like Orochimaru. Of course, Orochimaru alone isn't strong enough. It took 3 of people to hold Hanzo the Salamander. Well, if they were as strong as they are in the original story, they would have won, but it wouldn't be that easy to. To ambush Tsunade, the Rock Village needed to send more than 60 fine shinobis, 30 of them were killed by Naito. This event may not directly change the course of the war, yet this was the most important event to happen in this war up until now, since he managed to kill one of the strongest commanders of the Rock Village. The forest was a mess, everything got destroyed. A war just happened here. The blonde-haired girl was sitting under a tree. She already recovered some of her strength, but it will take some time to recover her chakra. Once she recovers her chakra, she will be able to heal her injuries. However, at this time, Tsunade wasn't thinking about her wounds, but about the cleaning of this battlefield. Naito came to her side. She always felt that Naito was so familiar, yet she couldn't remember him. After all, there's a lot of shinobis in Konoha, and Naito was an Anbu, so he needed to hide his identity. It's only normal that she couldn't recognize him. Of course, Naito's power shocked her. She didn't expect that there's someone so strong like Naito in addition to Sakumo. Thank you. The battle was over, and it was all thanks to Naito's effort. She tried to stand up, but she barely made it after she leaned toward the tree. Naito took his sword, then he sealed it off. Then he smiled at her and said, "You're welcome, it's my duty." Tsunade gently nodded at him, although she already knew that Yuyin received a command from Konoha to rescue her, but in the end, she was thankful that he did. She was very grateful. "Still, I should thank you personally." When he heard these words, Naito felt awkward, then he remembered that he was still wearing the mask. "You really don't need to thank me." Naito took off his mask and smiled at Tsunade. Although the identity of an Anbu should be kept a secret from everyone, yet it's a whole different thing when it's come to you, master, without mentioning that she's one of the Sanins of Konoha, and the princes of Konoha, and the granddaughter of the first Hokage. Even from a personal perspective, Naito didn't want to hide his identity from his master. Watching him taking his mask off, Tsunade couldn't believe it. For a second she got stunned, yet that moment couldn't pass. The more she looked at him, the more she couldn't believe it. She had an unbelievable expression. Although he changed a lot, she recognized him at first glance. But she still couldn't believe it. If he didn't just save her, she would suspect that he's an enemy. "Naito. You Naito?" Tsunade was still uncertain. Naito's mouth raised a little bit, then he looked at her with dumb eyes and said, Yeah, I'm your little cute brother Naito. I thought that as a big sister you will no matter what recognize your little brother. Is it really you?" Even if she couldn't believe it up until now, the moment she heard him she was 100% positive that the person in front of her is Naito. Naito shrugged, but he wasn't surprised that she couldn't recognize him. She just went through a lot. Tsunade was so grateful to see Naito, yet she got more shocked. She couldn't believe it. Naito just surpasses her in just 1 year. He caught up to her and walked right in front of her. What a fascinating talent. Because of the outbreak of the war, Minato got also graduated from the ninja school, yet he's only a genin. Although the strength of Minato is at least at the same level as a Chunin, he didn't have any role in this war. His rise is in the Third World War. But Naito, with his power now, he can even dominate the battlefield of this war. She just watched Naito destroying a whole troop of Jonins. The whole battlefield will hear of this name, you Naito. You little brat. You think you can talk to your big sister like that now that you've become a little bit stronger? Ha! After she got back to her sense again, Tsunade didn't change her attitude toward him just because he changed. She still was as kind as ever. No matter what happens, Naito will always be her little brother. Naito leaned toward her, then smiled. You really didn't recognize me, Tsunade-sama. Bang! Although it didn't have any strength, Tsunade poked his forehead, and with a warm tone she said, "Call me sister. Man, it's really hard to be appreciated by this sister, you're the one who didn't recognize me, you know." Naito looked at her and smiled. Tsunade didn't say any other word, but she smiled at Naito. Suddenly, Naito's felt a murderer instinct approaching them. Tsunade's expression changed. At the next moment, Naito bent down directly, then he tried to lift her in his arms. "Wait!" Tsunade exclaimed, but she couldn't stop it. Moreover, she didn't have the strength to stop it, she didn't have any other choice. This is a battlefield, of course, she cannot slow him down. However, Tsunade didn't felt okay to be carried. "We need to find a safe place first." Naito's expression didn't change, it was as serious as ever. The situation was serious, so he shouldn't think of any unnecessary things. Yet he couldn't help it. Naito was laughing from the inside, thinking of how he finally was gonna take his revenge on her. He knew how much Tsunade hated that, so he made it even worse and carried her on his back instead. He knew that Tsunade couldn't resist, and he knew what's gonna happen next. Tsunade hated herself for what she was gonna do next, and the only thing she was thinking of. This little devil. Unable to do otherwise, Tsunade crossed her arms over his neck and held him tight. Naito smirked, then he jumped. Carrying Tsunade, Naito didn't get far, it was impossible for him to go all the way back to the camp. Moreover, the battlefield took a place in this forest, and hiding in it is the best choice. No one will suspect that they didn't leave it. Theirs is a lot of big trees, and below these trees, there will be some big holes. The inside of these holes is so dark, it will be really hard to be noticed from a distance. After he found one, Naito gently put her down, ignoring her murderous stares, then he carefully cleaned up the inside of the tree hole. "Just rest a little bit, with your ability, you will be able to heal your wounds the moment you recover some chakra." Naito was calm as he looked at Tsunade. Tsunade kept staring at him for a long time, then she couldn't help but do as he said. Although she had some injuries on her body and her chakra has not recovered much, her physical strength has already recovered. Naito didn't help but admire her strength. Although she's so strong, but her strength is not even comparable to what she achieved when she mastered the reserve seal technique, yet her physical strength was a lot stronger than Naito. This is also was one of the reasons that kept her alive up until now. Iwagakyo. In the Sushikage office, the third Sushikage Onaki was sitting at his table looking at some data. What a bunch of idiots. Onaki was so annoyed. He planned for a big ambush on one of the most important troops of Konoha. As a result, he sent a big squad to do the mission, but after a few days, they were unable to take down the target. This is made Onaki very angry, so he sent the ambush to take over the mission, and help to kill the targets. Of course, this is a proof of how much this ambush is important to Onaki. However, even the Anbu couldn't complete the mission. The information he had in front of him said that all the ninjas who took part in this mission got killed by Konoha's Shinobis. Moreover, it had some information on the battle itself and how it was fierce. It estimates that Konoha managed to send a rescue troop and how it successfully rescued Tsunade and destroyed the Rock's troops. Konoha was really fast, but still, those bastards are indeed a piece of crap. Onaki turned around and was about to leave the office. However, he noticed something, so he took some steps back and read the report once again. No, the battle took a place in the Rain Country, so where did the Konoha army disappear? If there is really a troop, the scout should have noticed them, but there's no information on them here. Something is really weird. Onaki frowned then said, "Give me all the information you have on the battlefield." Soon, a ninja walked in and gave the report to Onaki. The more he read it, the more he felt suspicious. Maybe there wasn't a troop at all, maybe they were just a few people, and maybe it's just one person. A man who could destroy a whole troop of Earth Release users. What kind of people is that? A wind user? Maybe a thunder user? No, he wouldn't be able to destroy a whole troop if he wasn't using a unique technique. Maybe he's a blood limit user. There's no information on a guy like this in Konoha. Then who's this person? Those Konoha's bastards. Thinking of this, Onaki took a deep breath and his expression became cold. He returned to his seat, and after a long silence, he gave several orders. It's time to take another look at Konoha. In the hinterlands of the rain village, the weather was as rainy as ever. Yet the hole in a tree was very dry. There were some cracks in that hole, and the rain was flowing into those cracks, yet they were blocked by some rocks. This way was very good to block and get water wherever you want. Tsunade was taking a rest after she wrapped her wounds. This way the injuries won't get infected. After a while, Tsunade slowly opened her eyes and took a glance at Naito, who was sitting on the side, and said, "My chakra is almost recovered." "Good." Naito responded. "I will start healing my lower body." "Okay." Naito didn't turn around and responded. "Then you should get out." "Ah." Naito turned and looked at Tsunade. The next moment, Naito understood that Tsunade has more injuries than what he imagined, and of course she will need to clean up from all the blood. Some blood stains have been there for many days now. After that, Naito shrugged and walked out from the hole. Tsunade looked at his back while he was leaving with a helpless look on her face. Suddenly, her palm got covered with a green aura and started healing her wounds. After he left the place, Naito thought of going back and peep on her. But he never forgot how did she treat such an action. The answer was always a painful punch in the face. Of course, he maybe looks like a little child, but in the reality, he's in his 20s. The rain was constantly falling. However, not a single drop fall on his body. Before it gets close, it will bounce off due to his ability. Naito often keeps his body slightly in a trembling state. This state doesn't only give him some sort of immunity, but also it strangely gives him a sense of all of his surroundings. Of course, it cannot be relied on to work the same way as the Bakugan. However, Naito believes that it can be developed. Everything in the world has its own vibrations. Sometimes he seems to be able to feel those vibrations. If he develops these senses, he will no longer need vision. This way he may even be able to sense what he can't even see with his own eyes. Of course, this only a raw idea. He's not able to do such a thing with his current level. He can only feel a few steps around him. In addition, Naito is more interested in mobilizing skills now, so he has done some researches on this topic. His current speed is basically comparable to an average Anbu level. However, if you want to compare it to the Raikage's level, there will be a big gap between the two, yet still, his speed is close to Minato. However, if he was facing the future Minato with the Flying Thunder technique, he wouldn't be as fast as him. Well, in short distance, he can fight against his speed, and this alone is good. But only in terms of short distance. That alone won't be enough to fight against the Flying Thunder technique. Once you avoid him, he will attack once again from another place. The only way to fight against him is if you're able to avoid and attack him. To be able to fight against someone like Minato, he will need to be much faster than him in short distances. This is just how much Minato is strong. But Naito had already the right answer to improve his speed. During the practice time of Naito, he always focused more on the physical strength more than anything, so he came up with a new kind of teleporting technique based on his physical strength. There's a lot of teleporting techniques in the ninja world. The most famous one is the Flying Thunder God, which doesn't require hand signs. This technique proved itself very useful on the battlefield. In addition to the Flying Thunder God technique, there's a lot of other techniques, but they all require hand signs every time to use it. In short, it's more flexible. Naito was still on the battlefield, and there was some shinobis from the rock circling the place. Even if they were Jonins or elite Jonins, they wouldn't stop Naito, yet they were capable to hold him for some time. The Suro technique is a body technique, allows the users to move at extremely high speeds from a point to another, but it requires a very strong physical strength, and even at my current level it's so difficult to do. Even after he mastered the first stage of the lightning armor technique, he failed to do it. After all, the Suro is a technique that can make you even run on the air. In this world, the only person who could achieve such a thing is Guy after he opened the 8th gate. The physical strength of ninjas is a lot stronger than average people, but still, it's not enough. Therefore, Naito gradually gave up on developing this technique by simply relying on his body strength, and instead, he started thinking of a way to combine both chakra and his strength. Naito had some ideas. His shock power wasn't the answer, since it was a power that affects the outside and does no effect on his own body. However, Naito had one more idea, the brutal force technique. The brutal force is a technique that affects both his body and the shocks. The brutal force was always the thread that combines both his body strength and the shock power. He took a deep breath, the chakra started flowing into his foot, then he kicked the ground with that force. Sru. Crack. The ground instantly cracked under his feet, and he moved so fast from where he was standing to another place. Although the speed was very fast, it actually was less than what the brutal force could enhance. No, the speed didn't improve a lot, the impact was slightly off and it lost most of its power. After he stopped, Naito frowned slightly. At the rear, Tsunade's voice came from inside of the tree hole. What happened? Nothing, I'm developing a new technique. After he explained, he fell back deep into thoughts. The brutal force strengthened the flow of the chakra and concentrated it at one point. But the effect wasn't big. Naito needs to condense it more at the moment of the impact to gain more speed. Therefore, Naito needs to modify the technique a little bit. I'll try it again. Boom. Naito once again moved so fast, and the speed was obviously improved, but it wasn't fast enough. Again. He went back and forth time after time, he tests it more than 10 times, and every time he was trying a new trick, and the speed began to increase significantly. It seems like he was on the right path. Naito stopped again, and his face was full of joy, and as he was about to continue, he suddenly felt a strange feeling from the rear. He turned around and looked to the rear, but no matter how much he looked, there wasn't any person. Strange. It was strange. Naito looked down at his feet. The ground had a lot of cracks where he was moving back and forth. He stared at the ground for a while, yet there was still no movement. Naito shook his head a little, and suddenly an idea struck him down. He might be under some kind of genjutsu. Suddenly, there was some movement in the ground. There is something underground. With a sharp look on his face, Naito lifted his leg and it wasn't covered by that blue aura of the brutal force technique anymore, but it changed to a white flashing light. However, as he was about to kick the ground, the sound of Tsunade shouting from the tree hole stopped him. What the hell is this? Boom! Suddenly, the tree hole got destroyed. At the next moment, Tsunade rushed out from the inside of the tree hole unharmed. However, when she rushed out from there, Naito was standing there, in front of her looking dazed. Tsunade didn't notice that. She looked at the tree hole while she was clenching her fist and ready to attack. At the next moment, the broken tree hole suddenly burst open, and a strange floating head came outside. What kind of things is that? She was a little surprised, but she didn't have any fear. If you dare to disturb her, a punch will be her answer. However, as she was landing her punch, the strange head opened its mouth and something came out of him. Foosh! It was a deep purple poisonous gas. Tsunade didn't expect that this thing will use a poison, and the moment she threw that punch it was hard to stop, yet she forced herself to retreat. She fell back quickly, but she didn't forget to alert Naito. Retreat! It's a poisonous gas. Oh! Yes. Naito was dazed and didn't notice it, but the moment he heard Tsunade's voice, he subconsciously stepped back beside Tsunade. Tsunade finally noticed that there was something off with Naito. But at the next moment, she understood. To heal her wounds, Tsunade needed to take off all of her clothes. When that monster came out suddenly out of the ground, she slammed out the tree hole forgetting the thing about her clothes. In other words, Tsunade was completely naked in front of Naito. Naito coughed and said, "Well, I actually didn't see anything, my vision is not very good." Tsunade. At the next moment, Naito took off his cloak and threw it toward Tsunade. Tsunade took it, and covered her beautiful body. She didn't care a lot about the fact that Naito saw her body. The most important thing right now was the poisonous gas in front of them. Seeing her reaction, Naito did the same to save the embarrassment of the moment and looked at the poisonous fog. The deep purple poisonous gas looked highly toxic from the first glance. The surrounding trees start to die the moment the gas came near them. This poison made Tsunade's expression slightly change. "Be careful, don't come even near it." Understood. Naito nodded, while he was ready to throw a punch at any time. At the next moment, the monster that cast the poison slowly crawled out of the purple gas. Naito didn't see the whole creature the first time, he only saw its head, and now as he finally saw its whole body, Naito's expression strangely changed. "It looks familiar." At the next moment, Naito's expression changed again, his whole body got stunned, he recognized the monster and felt that he just stepped in a serious combat. This monster, it's Ibus. Perhaps Ibus himself wouldn't be a problem, but this thing comes always with another person, the salamander, the leader of the Rain Village, and the legendary Shinboy, Hanzo. Hanzo, is he nearby? Hanzo's power was known all over the world in the original story. He was well known and renowned throughout the Shinobi world, so much that enemies have been known to flee at the very sight of him. No one will be this famous if he wasn't an extraordinary Shinobi. No one managed to kill him but Pain himself. What's the matter? Tsunade is very clever, she didn't know a thing about Hanzo, but she noticed how weirdly Naito reacted the moment he saw that monster. A monster that can use poison wouldn't make Naito have this serious expression. Naito didn't answer her, but he started looking everywhere for Hanzo, but he couldn't find him. If he was here, he wouldn't be alone, he would carry a lot of Shinobis with him. Although, Hanzo is a very strong Shinboy, yet he's also kinda coward. He's not here. Shaking his head, Naito lost all of his fighting spirit. Naito wasn't afraid of Hanzo, on the contrary, Naito was confident in his power, he even thinks that he's strong enough to defeat Hanzo. Naito wanted to test his power, nothing more, and the fact that Hanzo wasn't here made him very disappointed. Who's not here? Tsunade looked strangely at Naito, she was afraid, but she asked again. Hanzo the salamander. Naito looked at Ibus in front of him and answered Tsunade's question. Tsunade got shocked and said, no wonder it was familiar. It seems to be Ibus, I didn't expect that we will encounter him in this place. Yes. Naito nodded and looked toward Ibus again, then an idea struck him down and said, if we catch it, will you be able to create an antidote out of it? If the answer is yes, this will be a great counter to Hanzo's poison. With a confident expression, Tsunade said, you don't need to catch it, just get me the poison sac, and I will make an antidote. Good. Naito nodded, if they got this antidote, then the story about the three Sannin fighting against Hanzo will be completely rewritten. Without hesitation, Naito summoned his Tsunade sword, then he rushed toward Ibus holding it. Crack! A white light halo covered his sword, vibrating the space around it. However, Ibus is an animal after all, and his instinct alerted him. Just as he was about to strike him, Ibus started digging the ground to escape. Not good. Don't let him escape. Tsunade knew the importance of making this antidote, she lifted her beautiful leg to break the ground and stop him from escaping. Then once again Naito got stunned in his place. He just saw what was down there when she lifted her leg. At that moment, Tsunade noticed that she wasn't wearing anything down there, she quickly put it down, but she was too late, Naito was already in another world. Cough, let me do it. Naito coughed a little, then he lifted his leg and slammed the ground. Boom! In a second, the ground cracked wide, and the whole forest started shaking. The crack spread out in all directions like a spider web, and the shocks went deep underground. Finally, due to this strong attack, the ground cracked open, and Ibus came out to the ground wounded. He has an impressive strength, any other ninja would have died from this attack. Because he didn't know the location of the poison sac, Naito didn't want to use a strong attack against him. Therefore he just used a simple shock wave. Boom! As he waved his sword, some large trees in the distance got shocked and destroyed into countless pieces. Ibus is strong, but he couldn't resist such a power, he got crushed down by the shock wave. Wait a minute, he could be faking it. Tsunade prevented Naito from going right away toward it. Naito nodded, and both of them stood there watching Ibus. After a while, there wasn't any movement, so both of them went toward him. Whoosh! After few cuts, Naito managed to locate the poison sac inside of his body. Tsunade extended her hands inside of him and removed the poison sac and sealed it into a scroll. Kai! She took the scroll and put it into her pocket. Naito couldn't help but looking at her the whole time. Tsunade got annoyed and said, "Hey, cut it off, I won't stay with you anymore. Or we just need to find you proper clothes." Tsunade stared at him with murderous eyes, but then her expression changed to a helpless one. If it was Jiraiya, she would have punched him so hard in the face to the point where he wouldn't even remember his own name. But since it was Naito, she just ended up with this helpless expression. Moreover, this accident was her mistake, she couldn't blame Naito for it. Rain Village, the forest. A person walking along the river and carefully observing the place. Originally, they planned to go back to Konoha's camp as soon as Tsunade heals her wounds, but they didn't expect that they will encounter Ibus and get their hands on its poison. Therefore, the plan got changed. Since Ibus is here, Hansa's camp should be nearby. Moreover, even if it wasn't nearby, they needed to collect some herbs to create the antidote. Tsunade was doing the experiments, but it's not easy to break the formula of the antidote, otherwise, Hansa shouldn't be able to kill all of those people over the years using Ibus's poison. Tsunade was collecting the herbs and studying the formula, while on the other side, Naito was practicing his new technique. Sru. Boom. The ground under his feet cracked open, while Naito's body disappeared. He instantly landed on a big tree in a distance. The moment he put his foot on it, it got smashed directly. It seems like there's still a room for improvement. This time the speed he achieved made Naito a little satisfied. A little by little the brutal force technique became a whole other technique. And it became the body movement of instantaneous high speed, Sru. The current Sru can be used at the battlefield. The original speed of Naito is basically comparable to the average Anbu level. With the Sru technique, it's twice faster. Regardlessly of the effect, the distance limitation, it can be considered as a teleporting technique. Again. Naito once again concentrated more chakra into his foot, then he condensed it at the moment of the impact. Crack. The ground once again cracked open. The speed of Naito was almost invisible to the naked eye, as if it was flashing, then he appeared in the distance. Naito almost got hit by the big tree. This. Naito stopped with a look of horror on his face, he couldn't even hide his shock. This was the best one. After countless of adjustments and improvements, he finally reached the perfect shape. With further improvement, and with some luck, Naito can even get 3 times faster than his original speed. The speed at this level, even if it's not faster than the Flying Thunder God, the gap isn't that big, but unfortunately, the two techniques are not at the same level. His happiness didn't last long. Even if the speed is comparable, the technique itself alone is worse than the lightning Flying Thunder. Yes, there's almost no limit to the increase of the Sru's speed, but the problem is whether the body can withstand the further improvement or not. Naito's physical strength is not even comparable to the original Minato after all, yet he was able to withstand that speed. Even if Naito was able to improve the technique to be 4 times faster than the Flying Thunder, there are no guarantees that his body will be able to withstand it. To put it simply, the stronger his body, the more he will be able to withstand stronger pressure, yet there are always limitations. Sru is the same case as the power of shocks, it will grow as Naito's body grows. If I learn the secrets of the second stage of the lightning armor technique, and open the next gate of the reverse Hakemon Tonku, along with the speed of the Sru, it should be enough to surpass the speed of the Flying Thunder God technique. I just need to know, in short distance, what's the difference between the Sru and the Flying Thunder. After he whispered that, Naito continued his thinking. However, thinking about the war, the only villages who participated in this one are only the 4 forces of Konoha, the Rain Village, the Rock Village, and the Sand Village. The Cloud Village didn't participate. After the end of the war and destroying the Rain Village, the Cloud Village will take part in the long-term conflicts. The breakout of the World War II and the World War III took different paths. The first one began with a huge battle in the Rain Village, then ended with long-term conflicts. But the second start with long-term conflicts then ended up with a huge battle which got ended by the hands of Minato, who became the 4th Hokage after that. After achieving the perfect shape of the Sru technique, Naito mastered that technique after doing it many times and left the place. As a matter of fact, the current perfect state of the Sru isn't the true power of the technique, It can only be regarded as a prototype. Naito will need to open the fourth gate, then perhaps it will really become a powerful technique, then he will need to open the fifth or even the sixth to be even stronger. Of course, even so, the Shrew technique is a great step forward for Naito. He's almost at the level of the Anbu captain. In this world, there's no such a classification. Naito just made it up to measure up his own strength. For example, a shinobi with a special bloodline or with some forbidden ninjutsu can be considered as an elite or a jonin. But the Anbus are quite different. The Anbus are the highest ranked people in this world. They are standing at the top of all aspects. This is mean that there's no human can be ranked above them. They are the people who reached the limit. Of course, there's exclusion who cannot be ranked, such as Uchiha Madara who cannot be considered as a human being. Humans cannot achieve such a power. The only people who can be on top of them are the Hokages and the Anbu captains. And every Anbu is capable of reaching that level. In the original story, a lot of ninjas seemed to be stronger than the Anbu. But it's just because the Anbus are very unique shinobis. Moreover, between the Anbus there's a lot of people who are strong at some sport and weak in others. But sure, there's some Anbus who reached the highest levels. However, there's a lot of people who broke the limits. In the original story, Orochimaru could easily kill the third Kazekage, Gaara's father. His level surpassed the Anbus captain. The third Raikage was a beast who could fight fairly against the Hachibi and fight for 3 days against an army of 10,000 shinobis to let his comrades escape. His strength is just enormous and cannot be ranked. Even Saruotobi is known to be one of the strongest shinobis in the history. As for Hanzo who fought against the 3 Sannin and defeated them. Even Sakumo is one of these people. Naito might be overrated him, but he also shouldn't be at the same level as the other Anbu captains. Naito does really want to meet someone with the level of an Anbu captain or a Hokage to understand where he's standing on the term of power, but these kind of people are hard to encounter. Naito's improvement is really fast. At this age, there are almost no limitations on where he can go further. The only person who had such a growth is Uchiha Itachi. He managed to awaken his full Sharingan at the age of 13. At the time he awakened the main Gekyu Sharingan he was already at the peak of the Hokage's level, but he was 3 years older than Naito when his talent blossomed. Walking through the forest, Naito ran into Tsunade. With a slight surprise, Naito asked Tsunade, "Is it finished?" "Not finished, but it shouldn't take long." Tsunade shook her head while holding some herbs and said, "I have already determined the formula, I just need to some more experiments." Tsunade laughed then asked Naito, "How is it going with the new technique? It's not easy to modify my technique after all." "But still you're so young, you don't need to rush things this way, there's no need for you to develop new ninjutsu." Listening to that arrogant line, Naito suddenly scratched his head and said innocently, "Well, I've already completed it." Tsunade's expression suddenly changed. She thought that Naito will fail on developing this technique and he will end up with giving up and coming to her asking for help, but she didn't expect him to actually success. In just a few days, Naito transformed her brutal force technique to a whole new one. Naito looked at that unbelievable expression on the face of Tsunade, then he smirked and used the technique. Boom! The ground cracked open, and with high speed Naito blinked from his place directly to the other side. Tsunade could barely see him. Suddenly, Tsunade's eyes got widened, as if she saw a monster. What kind of technique is that? Tsunade wanted to have him as a disciple, but with his current strength, she started to feel inferior to him. In fact, Naito didn't accept her as a master, he only accepted her as an older sister. Once again, she couldn't help but admire Naito's talent. She smiled at him, then explained her everything about Sru. Sru is a technique inspired by the brutal force technique. Naturally, it's very suitable to Tsunade to learn. Once she learns this technique, along with the brutal force, she will get a lot stronger. Maybe she wouldn't reach the level of the Anbu captains, yet she will have enough strength to be able to threaten them. Originally they were planning to go back to Konoha's camp the moment she finishes the antidote, but after he explained this new technique, Tsunade wanted to learn it right away. Here in the battlefield of the war, you need to take advantage of every chance you get to train, since you won't have that chance so often. Because this technique was inspired by her own technique, it didn't take her a long time before she mastered it. However, her current physical, even if it was better than Naito's, Tsunade is not as strong as she should be while using her Thousand Seals technique. She could easily master it, but it wasn't compared to Naito. Naito also wanted to direct her to the right path to develop the Thousand Seals technique earlier. It would have a huge effect. Naito noticed that she was already thinking of developing it. He thinks she wouldn't have a chance in this war if she doesn't develop it soon. In the forest, two persons were fighting each other. Sru. Tsunade, who was facing Naito, suddenly blinked toward him with a high speed. Then she threw a punch. Facing the punch of Tsunade, Naito also threw a punch, and of course, he didn't use the shock power, he only used the brutal force technique. Boom! The two fists collided in the air, and because he didn't use the shock power, Naito got pushed back. He landed on the ground and spat blood. Because of the Senju bloodline, Tsunade's chakra is a lot stronger than Naito's, although physically he was much stronger, but when it comes to the brutal force she was way better. Of course, the real strengths of Naito comes from the shock power, not the brutal force. If he did use it, Tsunade wouldn't be able to stand it. Something that she absolutely wouldn't stand it. Something that she would definitely hate. Suddenly, Naito got stunned in his place, looking at Tsunade. What are you doing? Why are you looking at me like this? Naito looked at her and suddenly his face became so red, thinking about the accident a few days ago. Tsunade's face got a little bit blush and got angry. That thing again, forget it already. Cough. Naito coughed a bit. He couldn't help but to look at Tsunade. He originally didn't want to think about it, but one thing led to another, and the picture came to his head. Although Tsunade was wearing her clothes now, that picture couldn't leave his head. Looking at Naito, Tsunade felt very bad. In fact, she didn't care that he saw her naked, she just hated to see that expression on his innocent, cute face. Do you know, you start to look a lot like someone I really hate. I think I will need to teach you a lesson. Naito got really scared. He already knew who she was talking about. Naito, with a painful expression, thought about that lesson she was talking about, so played his winning card, the cute innocent face. In fact, being cute or handsome wouldn't pay you that much in this world, but since he had a good relationship with Tsunade, it always worked like a charm. After shaking her head, Tsunade was no longer joking, and with a serious expression she said, "Well, we need to go back soon, it's been a long time, we need to see how things are going in Konoha's camp." Understood. Naito nodded, and they immediately left the forest. Luckily they didn't rush into any enemies on their way out of the forest. Then they went all the way back to the camp of Konoha. The clouds were covering the entire sky, and the rain didn't stop for days. The rain village at this point was already very messy. Along the way, Naito and Tsunade tried to stay out of troubles. yet they still often encountered some shinobis from the sand and the rock. Of course, they didn't go easy on anyone. The moment they encounter them, they will immediately kill them. With the Shrew technique, Tsunade's strength became even stronger than the original one. She could easily handle almost anybody, and of course, Naito was there and almost no one can stand against him. It doesn't matter who encounters them, he will never live to see another day. Just as they were halfway back to the camp, they encountered an elite troop from the Sand Village. The Sand Troop were just walking out from a bloody battle. Moreover, the location of the battle didn't seem to be far away. Many of corpses were around the place. There wasn't any shinobis from Konoha. There was a battle between the sand and the rocks, ended up with the Sand Troop winning. Naito and Tsunade run into them in the last minute where they were hiding back. Since it already happened, it was obviously impossible to avoid it. Naito looked at the troop of the sand and counted 30 or 40 people. It wasn't a big number, nothing he couldn't handle. However, Naito got surprised when he saw the commander of this troop. It was a very familiar face. Kyo. It's the grandmother of Sasori, but she was still very young, and she was at the peak of her game. Naito almost didn't recognize her. Kyo also saw Naito and Tsunade. Naito was wearing his mask and cloak, so naturally, she couldn't know his identity. But she could recognize Tsunade from the first glance. It's finally come to this path. You're really alive, huh? Those rocks bastards are really good for nothing. Kyo had a cold expression while looking at Tsunade. Tsunade noticed that there were at least 30 shinobis around Kyo. She slightly frowned, but the moment she thought about Naito she calmed down. Looking at Kyo, Tsunade replayed with pride. I see that you're still alive too, Abason. Hey. What can I say, I'm just that strong. Kyo snorted, and suddenly, the shinobis of the sand surrounded Naito and Tsunade. Kyo is strong, but at the same time, she's also an excellent medical nin, and poison user. Tsunade, on the other hand, she wasn't good at using poison, but she was way better as a medical nin, and antidotes user. In the original story, Kyo's poison played a big role in the World War II and killed a lot of shinobis, yet it didn't work on Konoha's army. And it was all because of Tsunade. Kyo and Tsunade didn't encounter each other in the battlefield, yet Kyo's poison and Tsunade's antidotes had a lot of fierce battles. Basically, Tsunade during the World War II made an antidote for every poison Kyo made, and this made her very famous as the best medical nin in the history. HolyOniiSama, there are no other Konoha's ninjas here but these two. At that time, a ninja walked to the side of Kyo and gave her a report about the situation. Suddenly, Kyo's face was full of joy. In other words, this is the best opportunity to kill Tsunade. The news that the rocks shinobis were gonna kill Tsunade was heard in some place around the battlefield. But now she appeared again with some Anbu from Konoha. She assumed that Konoha sent a troop to rescue her, and after a fierce battle they managed to save her. But after all of that, here she is all alone in front of her. It's a gift from the heavens. I should say that I'm very happy, your misfortune lead you here in front of me. Kyo smiled slightly, but her eyes were full of murderer instinct. The rocks wouldn't be a problem, but Konoha has you, and that's why you need to die today. Is that so? Unfortunately, you're not capable of killing me. Kyo's words didn't shake Tsunade's confidence. In a matter of fact, she seemed even more confident than Kyo. After all, Tsunade had Naito by her side, and he's more than enough. 30 of 40 shinobis wouldn't be a problem to Naito. You arrogant little girl. Kyo got mad. Kyo, of course, could call her a little girl. After all, her son and daughter-in-law, the parents of Sasori, were fighting in this war, and they were very famous and strong. Although they will get killed by Hatake Sakumo later in this war. Kyo kept staring coldly at Tsunade. Suddenly, some shinobis from the sand rushed toward the two of them. In the view of Kyo, there were only two people in front of her. Even if they were strong, there's no way they can fight against them rather than escaping 40 people. Fire release, fireball. Wind release, dragon's art. In an instant, dozens of ninjas launched fire and wind releases, and other threw out shurikens and kunais. Boom! The wind and fire releases got mixed, forming a very strong fire release, evaporating the rain itself. Watching this strong attack hiding toward Naito and Tsunade, Kyo got calm. Tsunade is just a medical nin, it's impossible to stop such an attack, and that Anbu, he doesn't look strong, there's no way for him to be the Anbu captain. Just when she thought that Naito and Tsunade are dead, the scene suddenly changed dramatically. Boom! The flames were blocking all the direction. Naito and Tsunade figures got covered by those flames, and from the outside, they could only see their shadows. Seeing these flames were about to burn the two of them into ashes, Naito finally moved. Naito walked 2 steps forward and stopped right before Tsunade's back. He opened his arms as if he was about to hug her, and at the next moment, he slammed both sides with his fists. Crack! The air burst and the space cracked like a broken mirror. The momentum was extremely large, and it almost blocked the flames. Suddenly, the shock spread out in all directions. The ground itself started to crack open from where Naito and Tsunade were standing, spreading out to a distance, shaking the whole place and waving the muddy ground. It's devastating, it completely destroyed the fire and wind release. While standing between the arms of Naito, he looked at her face. Tsunade had a provocative expression, then she smiled at him. Naito retracted his arms, but he didn't expect Tsunade to have that kind of attitude. It seems that she's very confident in his strength more than what he thinks. Cough. Yet it always felt a bit strange. Naito slightly smiled. Since Tsunade is always good to him, he didn't mind to keep on protecting her. Master, you don't need to fight, I'm more than enough. Tsunade got a little bit surprised, yet she understood his intentions and smiled. Well, you can have this one. The dialogue between Naito and Tsunade after he smashed the fire and wind release made Kyo on the other hand very angry. It's very clear now that Naito is a powerful Anbu, Tsunade is the princess of the Konoha, so it was only natural why he called her master. But Kyo felt that Naito's words are unreasonable and arrogant. No need for her to fight, he's more than enough. Who do you think you are? The Anbu captain. Konoha's ninjas are really arrogant. Very good, I will teach you some manners. Kyo threw a stack of scrolls on the ground and looked coldly at Naito. Naito suddenly turned to Kyo and shouted. Wait. What? Are you afraid or something? No, I mean, let me deal with the unwanted audience first. Naito looked calmly at Kyo. Kyo now is at her peak, in the terms of strength, she is ranked as an Anbu level. However, the Anbu level is her limitation. After all, there's a big gap between her and the other geniuses. She's one of the powerhouses of the Sand Village. Naito was interested in fighting her. Moreover, Naito thinks that Tsunade can't win in a fight against Kyo, so he needed to take her place. Even if Tsunade wasn't afraid at all, Naito wasn't gonna let her fight against Kyo. For a Taijutsu user like Tsunade who still didn't develop the Thousand Seals technique, Tsunade wouldn't be able to defeat Kyo. But Naito is a different case. Even if she was one of the most talented puppets users, Naito is strong enough to fight against her. Naito wouldn't be afraid, even if Sasori himself was in front of him. And in the case of Kyo, Naito wasn't afraid at all. But before that, Naito need to get rid of these sand shinobis first. Kyo got a little bit surprised when she heard Naito's words. Suddenly, Naito clenched his fist and slammed the space in their direction. Boom! Just because he needed to protect Tsunade at the same time, Naito was afraid that the shocks will reach her, so he didn't use his maximum power, yet it was a serious punch. He used both the brutal force and the shocks in it. Crack! The moment he punched the space, it crashed and cracked horrible to nearly tens of meters ahead of him. The cracks were so thick. From a distance, he seemed like he wanted to crack the space itself. The cracks spread all the way toward the sand troop and covered the entire area. Not good. Beware. When the sand shinobis saw this scene, their expression changed, but their reaction was different. Some people fell back immediately and others prepared themselves to block and printed some hand seals, while others were ready to support. Fire release, fire dragon bomb. Earth release, rock wall. Wind release, breakthrough. In 1 second, they cast all kinds of ninjutsu, while Naito's shocks were heading toward them with a strong momentum. The fire release collided first, but it was so small and got shattered directly. The wind release didn't have a chance even after the fireball hit the shocks first and got directly destroyed. The power of the shock continued its course toward them, destroying all kind of ninjutsu they were throwing. In the rain village, the ground is muddy, and that's made the earth release is one of the weakest releases around here. And that's also was the case for the fire releases too. But even if it was a strong version of the rock wall, it wouldn't be able to block Naito's punch or even weakening it. Even after it was blocked by all these ninjutsu, the shock got only slightly weakened, but not enough to be blocked completely by the rock wall. Crashing all things that stand on its way, the shock power continued its path. From the moment Naito threw this punch, to the moment where they cast all of this ninjutsu, it was less than 2 seconds. At these 2 seconds, Naito's shock destroyed, smashed, swept and shattered everything on its way toward the sand shinobis, then crashed all of them. The shinobis who fell back were fine, they got slightly shocked but it wasn't enough to kill them. But the other who were in the front, they got smashed by Naito's punch and died in the worst way possible. It's a long story when you tell it, but it was only 2 seconds, Naito threw a punch, and nearly 10 people just died. No one would believe that the power of a punch can be this strong. This is impossible. What kind of power is this? Too strong. What the hell is this? The remaining shinobis who were still alive, looked at Naito with widened eyes. It's almost like a dream. Is this a genjutsu? No, it's true. This is the reality, and it's just so cruel. Even Kyo looked so terrified. The power of this punch is almost close to an S-class ninjutsu. Moreover, he looked like he didn't even break a sweat casting this much power. It seems like this is not his limit. This is incredible. He didn't even use hand seals. The range of his attack is so big, and the power is so strong. Kyo stood there unable of doing any kind of move. Where did Konoha find this monster? This a complete nightmare. Kyo needed to know if Naito really doesn't need to do any kind of prints to attack, so she was about to test him. But Naito was already moving again. This time he also used a punch. And there was no such a difference between this one and the last one. There was a lot of shinobis in front of him, but just one person dared to face him while the rest fell back. However, Naito punch covered a large area and reached everyone. Crack. Boom. This time the Sand Troop loss was more serious, more than a dozen people died directly. With just 2 punches, Naito killed more than 20 people. Although most of these 20 were just some tune-ins, still this is shocked everyone. Although, Tsunade was already aware of Naito's power, but once she saw it again, she couldn't help but feel a little bit surprised. As for Kyo, she was so terrified, and she finally summoned her puppets out from the scrolls. If she doesn't stop Naito, her whole team will get destroyed. When Kyo released her puppets, they got connected to her fingers by chakra strings. At the same time, that revealed her enormous amount of chakra. It was more than Naito, but a little bit less than Tsunade while using the Thousand Seals technique, yet Kyo didn't reach her peak yet. Her chakra was at the same level as an Anbu. The moment he sensed her chakra, Naito's expression became serious. Although he wasn't very good at sensing chakra, he could easily sense her powerful chakra. After all, Kyo was older than Naito and more experienced. He wasn't jealous or anything. Whatever she's gonna use, he will only need 1 punch to destroy everything. In the next moment, Kyo launched a direct attack on Naito. White Secret Technique, the Chikamatsu collection of 10 puppets. In the face of Naito, Shio didn't dare to underestimate him and used her best technique. Until Sasori becomes a shinobi, Kyo is the most powerful puppet user in the world. She can control a whole puppet with 1 finger, and she can use 10 puppets at the same time, and this is the limit for an ordinary puppet user. Whoosh! The speed of the puppets is extremely high, and Kyo's ability made them faster. The fastest one appeared in front of Naito in the blink of an eye. The body twisted strangely and sent countless of poisoned needles toward him. In the face of this terrifying attack, Naito didn't choose to dodge, but to attack. Crack! The air burst and the poisoned needles froze in midair for a moment, then they finally got destroyed into countless pieces. Seeing this scene, Kyo frowned. Even the sharp needles couldn't break through that weird power. It seems to be a blood limit more than rough power. I've never heard of such a guy in Konoha. Who is he? Kyo had a confused expression while she was staring at Naito's mask. After she launched her attack on Naito, some other shinobis from the sand overcome their fear and tried to attack Naito. Noticing their intention, Tsunade blinked toward them at high speed and punched them the same way as Naito. But the effect was quite different. Boom! Purely relying on her strength, Tsunade's punch blasted some of the shinobis who were about to attack Naito, while others managed to avoid her. Immediately, she rushed toward the remaining shinobis. You go deal with that old bag, I'll deal with these guys. Seeing this scene, Kyo didn't give any orders to her team, she just kept staring at Naito. In the view of Kyo, Tsunade is one of the most talented nin-medical shinobis in the history. She's a genius, but when it comes to fighting she's not very strong. As long as she can hold Naito for enough time, her team will be able to kill Tsunade, then they will surround Naito and win this battle. Therefore, Kyo stared at Naito waiting for him to do any kind of movements. Naito wasn't worried about Tsunade. Actually, if she couldn't deal with 10 shinobis from the sand, he will no longer acknowledge her as a sister. She's not weak, she doesn't need to be protected. With her strength now, she's at the same level as an Anbu. Even if she couldn't kill all of them, she will be able to hold them for a long time. Therefore, Naito put all of his focus on fighting Kyo for the meantime. The two of them kept on staring at each other without doing any kind of movements. Gradually, Kyo started to feel like losing to Naito. her presence is not as strong as Naito. Her forehead gradually got overflowed with traces of sweat, and her spirit started losing to Naito's more and more. She was so afraid to take a shot. As soon as her heart sunk into fear, Kyo knew that she should cut this overwhelming feeling. After moving her fingers, Kyo launched another attack. Whoosh! This time, 3 puppets rushed toward Naito. Her puppets are extremely flexible. They rushed toward Naito while changing their shapes and places. The first puppet directly pulled out a stack of rotating blades from its hand, with sharp edges on every blade. It didn't look like it's poisoned, but if it hits you, it wouldn't be good. The second one, take out a wire string and wanted to tie Naito to stop his movements. The third one, after a fast transformation, it turned into a cannon and shot a chakra ball toward Naito. Although it wasn't strong as a Baiju Dama, yet it cannot be underestimated. This instant attack was so perfect, and Kyo made it look very easy. Her control is worthy to made her stand on the top. He might seem sometimes a little bit cold, but Naito didn't help but to praise her for this perfect attack. But at the same time, Naito wasn't gonna stand there watching her killing him. The outcome will never change, the answer is always a punch. Boom! A punch broke out, and the sky trembled so hard, the perfect attack got defeated by Naito's fist. Moreover, Naito used his full power this time. Even if they were well-built puppets, they wouldn't be able to resist such a power. Crack! Crack! In an instant, the 3 puppets burst open and turned into countless pieces. Kyo fell back with her remaining puppets. In an instant Naito managed to destroy 3 of her puppets. Her fingers were slightly shaken. 3 jaws suction crushing. The 3 puppets get into a triangular formation, and by opening their mechanisms they released a terrifying tornado. In an instant, the 3 puppets formed the triangular formation, and start to suck everything inside that triangle including Naito. However, Naito didn't change his tactics. A barrage of punches was his answer. A punch, and another punch. If you can't use an S-class ninjutsu, you will never gonna be able to defeat Naito's punch. Boom! Under Naito's punch power, the triangular formations crashed. Like a god of war, Naito got out from that tornado staring at Kyo. Yes, the king is her. All bow down in front of the king. His presence has reached its peak. He gave Kyo the chills the moment he stared at her. You don't even need to cool down every time you use that power. Kyo's forehead got overflowed with traces of cold sweat. She could feel that Naito's chakra isn't that strong, but he's so strong that she couldn't find any kind weaknesses. At that moment, the aura Naito revealed made Kyo so terrified, that made her remember some people who had the same aura. Uchiha Madara. Senju Hashirama. Although he is not as strong as these guys, his aura is somehow similar. It's almost time for me to start again. Naito looked faintly to Kyo, and he noticed that the 3 puppets he destroyed just a while ago have been reassembled by Kyo's control. However, Naito didn't care about that. As long as he can reach Kyo, this will end. At the next moment, Naito suddenly kicked the ground with his foot. Whoosh! The ground suddenly burst open, with cracks spreading out in all directions. Naito flashed rushing toward Kyo at high speed. Those puppets around her could hardly react to Naito's speed. In other words, Kyo, who was controlling them, could hardly react to counter this kind of speed. What is this speed? Kyo could hardly see Naito as he was rushing toward her at the speed of light. She was so afraid, yet she could manage to take a few steps back. After all, Kyo is a strong shinobi. Even if she wasn't as fast as Naito, she could somehow react. but taking a few steps and blocking Naito's attack is a whole different case. After rushing through her puppets, Naito appeared in front of Kyo, and directly threw at her a punch without any trace of mercy. Boom! Mechanical light shield block. In the face of Naito's fist, Kyo didn't have any intention of fighting toe-to-toe with him and extended her arm. Her arm transformed into a mechanical one. In an instant, her arm transformed, and her chakra flowed so strong, forming a chakra shield. Boom! Naito's shock slammed the chakra shield, and the ground under them cracked open. In the distance, the fight between Tsunade and the other shinobis stopped to watch this shocking scene. That attack was so powerful, that it shocked all of them. Even Tsunade had the same expression. She felt amazed yet also proud that he's one of her allies. Naito is so strong, she couldn't disappoint him, she couldn't drag him down, she had to win this battle. Through. Boom! A roaring sound broke out. Tsunade's battle was as fierce as the other one. With her pure physical strength alone, she could fight more than 10 shinobis all alone. The other side. The space was shaking and shattering, and this punch looked like it can tear apart the whole place. Naito kept on pushing through, while Kyo's shield kept blocking him. The white cracks started to appear around them, cracking the whole area like a broken mirror. Finally, under the full force of the shocks, Kyo's chakra shield started to crack until it got completely destroyed. Boom! Kyo's body got pushed away by this enormous power. Since the chakra shield blocked most of the power, she didn't get injured, but her heart sunk in fear. She never felt this afraid. Only after experiencing the power of Naito's shock by yourself you will feel this kind of horror. He could easily break my chakra shield, this guy is a monster. The fear was clear on her face. Kyo controlled her puppets to regroup again and launched another attack. Naito didn't expect her to block his full power punch. No one at the level of an Anbu can be underestimated. If it's a simple move like a punch, some of them will be able to block it. However, Naito felt somehow embarrassed, and this is made him very annoyed. When he fought against her puppets the first time he found it very interesting. But when his punch got blocked and the puppets regrouped again, he got really annoyed. But isn't annoying him makes him more dangerous. Naito had a cold stare on his face, and his figure flashed. After directly avoiding one of the puppets' attacks, he suddenly appeared behind one of the puppets. Punch! Boom! The punch was so fast that the only thing she could see is her puppet getting destroyed. After that, the shock spread out all the way toward the broken pieces of the destroyed puppet and start shocking them until they turned into powder. This time I won't be able to reassemble it. Naito stopped and looked at Kyo. Kyo already knew that B-class ninjutsu won't work on Naito. Even if she uses an A-class ninjutsu, after changing the shape of her puppets, they won't be able to resist Naito's attacks. Up until now, her puppets who were made from stainless steel got destroyed so easily by Naito attacks. Kyo couldn't help stop thinking of what would happen for her if the chakra shield didn't block Naito's fist. Horror. At this time, Kyo doubted the identity of Naito. Is he the Anbu captain of Konoha? However, she suspected the idea that Tsunade is important to the point where Konoha sent such a person to protect her. Are you the Anbu captain of Konoha? However, Naito's strength is so incredible to the point where she couldn't help but ask. No. Naito's response as simple as his next move where he smashed a bunch of puppets with one fist. Surrounded by these puppets, Naito was fighting like a god of war up until now, and he didn't even pull out his Tsunade sword. Just by using his fist, he continued on destroying everything. As a result, Kyo could no longer recover her puppets. 10 puppets, one by one, Naito destroyed every single one of them. None of them could stop Naito, even if they joined hands, they couldn't stop him. One person with just using his fists, crushed all of them. This guy. The more she fought him, the more she felt despaired. At that time, on the other side of the battlefield, Tsunade managed to kill and injure more than a half of the Sand Shinobis. It was a matter of time before she could kill them all. With the technique of Sru, Tsunade looked like a tiger who's hunting his prey. For Tsunade to be able to defeat more than 10 Shinobis from the sand is only natural. Among those Shinobis, there were about 5 or 6 Jonins, but they were all weak. The others were only Chunins, with a bunch of scout-type ninjas who weren't good at fighting. If this is the case, if Tsunade wasn't able to defeat them, she shouldn't be one of the 3 Sannin, nor the 5th Hokage. Boom! After he threw a punch, Naito finally destroyed all of the 10 puppets. Then, he looked at Kyo. Since he was so annoyed from these puppets, Naito had to deal first with all them. The best way to attack a puppet's user is to aim to the user himself, but he can always defend himself using them, but if you destroy all of his puppets, his power will be reduced to the half. Whoosh! In an instant, Naito directly rushed toward Kyo throwing a punch. Crack! The shock power broke out. Kyo extended her hand in a try of blocking his attack, but under this enormous power, her hand broke into pieces. The most strange thing here is that there wasn't any blood flowing out. The broken pieces flow in the air with some papers sticking on some parts. Naito suddenly stopped. This is... Are you kidding me? Suddenly these parts explode, the air burst, and it slammed Naito and Kyo directly to the ground. Boom! Naito managed to stop the exploding from killing him at the last second using his shocks, yet blood came out from his mouth, while Kyo managed to somehow block some of the exploding by her chakra shield. After that, Kyo turned out and ran directly, leaving the battlefield. She didn't even look back. Kyo knew that if she was gonna continue this fight, she's gonna die. She's no opponent for Naito. Naito stood up immediately. After shaking himself, he was fine, he could mostly block that exploding. She's really strong. This is the first time someone manages to escape from me. However, at this moment, the Sand Shinobis has already reached their limits. Kyo got defeated by Naito. Is a joke? HolyOniiSama actually lost. Is that Anbu this strong? At the Sand Shinobis had an incredible look on their faces, all of them lost their spirit to fight, and looked so terrified. Kyo wasn't an Anbu. Yet she was one of the strongest Shinobis in the Sand Village at that time. She was second after the Anbu captain of the Sand. With this kind of status, Kyo was extremely respected between the Sand Shinobis. But she got beaten by a little unknown masked guy from Konoha. That. Who is he? Ordinary Anbus shouldn't be this strong. The remaining Shinobis were so confused and shocked as they were preparing to escape too. There's no need for the dead to know who I am. Dead people tell no stories. In an instant, Naito, who was so far away, rushed so fast toward them. The Sand Shinobis had to escape, but it was impossible. With the help of Tsunade, Naito easily killed all the remaining Shinobis. One person was already far away. Naito summoned his Tsunade sword, and directly sent a shock wave that cut him into 2 halves. Ha! I didn't expect that I'm gonna encounter Kyo and get completely defeated by her. Looking at the messy battlefield, Tsunade sighed and looked at Naito with her beautiful eyes. She didn't bring any antidote with her. She expected Naito to get poisoned by Kyo during the fight, but she didn't expect him to fight Kyo and force her to retreat without any help. The more she watched him, the more she admired him more. Sorry, I let her escape. With a sad look on his face, Naito looked at the Tsunade sword and said, if I used my Tsunade sword earlier, she wouldn't be able to escape. I can easily destroy that chakra shield with my sword. Tsunade was about to praise Naito, but this sentence made her stop. She wanted to knock some sense into him. Naito was able to defeat Kyo, one of the strongest shinobis in the Sand Village, yet he wasn't satisfied. What does he want more than that? But in the end, she sighed helplessly. Naito is growing up so fast, so it was only natural for him to think this way. Tsunade is also a genius, but compared to Naito, she felt that she didn't deserve to be called a one. However, in terms of medical ninjutsu, Tsunade was still proud of herself. There wasn't anyone better than her, and this only makes her the best. She was waiting for a chance to show off in front of Naito. However, it seemed almost impossible for him to get injured. Naito could even defeat Kyo. If Naito knew how Tsunade was thinking, he would cut one of his veins immediately for her. Rain Country, Sand Village Camp. A messy person appeared there, with a gloomy face, and walked in without saying any word. A few ninjas got surprised and wanted to stop him, but they got socked the moment they came near him. They recognized his identity. HolyOniiSama. What happened? Looking at Kyo, who had blood all over her, they all got shocked. Is this Kyo, one of the strongest shinobis in the sand? They've never seen Kyo in such a messy condition. Who caused this to her? Kyo didn't speak a word and walked directly to the command room. She closed the gate, and immediately vomited blood. However, she wasn't in a very bad condition. After all, she's a medical ninja. She treated herself all the way back to the camp. But her spirit was broken, and she suffered a great loss. At that moment, Kyo didn't have time to think about her own embarrassment. There was a bigger problem in her mind. Who was that Anbu? Such a powerful person wouldn't be just a protector of Tsunade. It's impossible that no one heard of him up until now. He's a very dangerous guy. No matter how you think about it, she needed to gather information about Naito. After she kept quiet for a long time, Kyo finally gave the order. Send an emergency call for the Anbu department. The country of Sand Village. In the Sand Anbu department, the Anbu captain was sitting in his chair, with his eyebrows crossed. Konoha managed to train a powerful Anbu. The cooperation with the Rock Village become very necessary. But working with the Rock Anbu won't be easy. The expression on his face became more serious as he threw the papers in his hand on the table. An Anbu from Konoha who is so powerful to be at the level of Hokage. It's really weird that no one heard about him up until now. Most famous Anbus who have been famous for their strength will be known by their own names like Sakumo, or they will be nicknamed. A lot of shinobis from Konoha worked in the Anbu department, yet their identity wasn't been hidden, like Minato, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru. Naito crossed his sword with the Rock and Sand Village. But no one knows who he is. In addition to this guy who no one knows his identity, there is one more disturbing thing. Why did Tsunade take all of this time to go back to their camp? The Anbu captain looked very confused. Did some accident happened? No, with the strength of Tsunade and with his power, what can happen to them? Maybe something bigger than this happened. We need to gather more information. Rain Village. Naito and Tsunade were walking side by side while the rain was falling, but it was directly bouncing off from Naito's body. Tsunade also was using an extremely high chakra controlling to keep the water away from her body. This made Naito very sad since he wanted to see Tsunade's wet body. This time they didn't encounter any surprises. Naito wanted to go off the road to see how Yoriko and Kanon were doing, but after he thought about it, he chose to go back with Tsunade to the camp first. You've achieved a lot of things. I'm afraid that after this accident they will gather a lot of information about you. After they walked for a while, Tsunade could see the camp in front of her. Naito looked at her and shrugged. Tsunade revealed a slightly weird expression. It became more complicated. Then she sighed slightly and said, "With your power, it's only a matter of time before you become the Anbu captain." The Anbu captain, it's still a little too far. Naito thought about Sakumo for a moment, then he shook his head. If he wants to become the Anbu captain or the next Hokage, his current strength won't be enough. At least he will need to open the fourth gate first. The more he opens more gates, the more the next one will become harder. The fourth gate isn't far away, and the fifth one won't be a problem too, but the sixth is kinda hard, and especially the seventh and the eighth. Naito has no idea how he will be able to open them. Naito and Tsunade slowly walked into the camp. Some ninjas had their eyes widened while they looked shocked. "Tsunade-sama, are you back?" "Yes." Tsunade nodded casually and went to the headquarters of the camp with Naito. At this moment, in the headquarters of the camp, Danza was sitting on his chair with his face showing a harsh expression. And on the opposite side, there was Hatake Sakumo. In the other chairs, there was the elite's Jonin of Konoha sitting so quietly. "We didn't receive any news from Tsunade for a long time. The last thing we know about her that she was surrounded in some forest in the Rain Village. We've received an information that the Shinobis who planned this ambush have been missing too, yet we didn't found Tsunade's body, so there's a hope that she's still alive and we need to hold up to this hope." Sakumo said this with an inspiring tone. Danza looked at him with an angry expression and said, "I refuse. You don't understand the situation, don't you? We've suffered more casualties than we afford to pay, yet you want to send more fine men to die for nothing. I will never agree to this." Danza's voice was so loud and angry. At that moment, a familiar sound came from the outside of the room. "Of course you don't need to send anyone to die since I've already returned." As soon as she walked in, Tsunade stared at Danza with a cold expression. She couldn't control her emotions. She knew that there was nothing wrong with what Danza said, but Sakumo believed that Tsunade was still alive, yet Danza didn't care if she was dead or alive. However, the tone and the expression of Danza made her very annoyed. He actually looked like he wanted her to be dead. Danza's expression was as cold as he was a moment ago. When he saw Tsunade coming in, he got stunned for a moment. He didn't want to believe it. He closed his eyes and opened them again, trying to deny the fact that she was alive, and he's only daydreaming. For a moment, all of the ninjas who were in the room jumped out from their seats. They know already how strong Tsunade is, but they didn't believe it too. "How did you? This is incredible. How did you manage to overcome that army all by yourself? It's great to see you again." Although they were extremely shocked, most of them showed a hint of joy. After all, Tsunade was an excellent medical ninja. If she's around, all of them will feel a little bit relieved. Sakumo was also slightly worried and looked at Tsunade and asked, "How did you?" In the next moment, another person came in and stood next to Tsunade. "It's thanks to the support of the Anbu Yuyin." Tsunade gently nodded to Sakumo. Yuyin was the code name of Naito, and Tsunade was aware of it. However, the ninjas who were in the room, except for Danza and Sakumo didn't know who Yuyan is. At this point, they all seemed shocked, all of them wanted to see the face under that mask. To be able to rescue Tsunade you must be very powerful. Was there such a guy in the Anbu? Sakumo was so amazed but also surprised that he has the ability to rescue Tsunade from that situation. It's really good to know that at the crucial times, there are reliable people like him to depend on. You've made it in time. Since you're here, we're starting the discussion of the next moves. Sakumo ordered a ninja from the outside to bring 2 more chairs. Tsunade, sit down directly. Naito didn't really want to participate in any meetings, but when she sat, Naito did the same thing casually after he shook his head. The meeting started directly. However, after he saw Tsunade, Danza's expression became darker and went into a deep silence. The moment the meeting ended, Danza immediately turned and left. The others also left, and only Naito, Tsunade and Sakumo were left. Take off your mask, I already know your identity. Sakumo smiled at Naito while looking at him as he was taking off his mask. He could not help but to pat his shoulders. Good job, son. This compliment was from the heart. In his view, he didn't care much about how Naito was able to kill a whole squad of Rock's Shinobi's more than the fact that he could rescue Tsunade. Originally, Sakumo cares more about his companions, not to mention that it was Tsunade. But Naito didn't only save me. From his side, Tsunade looked at Sakumo, and couldn't help but whisper these words. Naito looked at her and couldn't help but to admire her beauty. Immediately afterward, Tsunade told him about the entire process of the events, including the encounter of the Sand Shinobis, and how Naito was able to defeat Kyo. At first, when he heard the news about how Naito was able to defeat a whole squad of Rock Shinobis all by himself, Sakumo wasn't surprised, because he already knew how strong he is. However, when he heard that Naito was able to defeat Kyo, he got shocked. Sakumo wasn't even confident that he could defeat Kyo. But, how old is Naito? He didn't even become 11 years old yet. How could he defeat someone as Kyo in this age? Sakumo didn't even want to think about how strong Naito will become in the future. He could easily see the shadow of the first Hokage Hachirama on his back. When Sakumo passed the news of Naito's achievements back to Konoha, he didn't forget to add one sentence that Naito insisted on: he needs the secrets of the second stage of the lightning armor technique. Of course, it's better if he let the village help in finding it. However, it's estimated that Konoha now is fighting with the sand, rocks and the rain. It's a little bit difficult to put some people on the other side of the country to find out about a technique in the Cloud Village. Naito didn't put a lot of hope. Naito took off his mask and cloak and walked out from the headquarters. The moment he took the mask and the cloak, he was an ordinary shinobi from Konoha. He was no longer the Anbu who destroyed a whole squad from the Rock Village, nor the Anbu who defeated Kyo from the sand. Naito was so tired from the countless battles he had, so he walked around the camp stretching his body and trying to relax. However, Naito didn't expect to encounter a very familiar face. Minato. When he saw him, Naito had a strange expression. Did Sarutobi send Minato to participate in the battlefield? However, when he saw Minato holding some items and tools, Naito's expression changed. It seems that Minato is in the team that responsible for the protection of the transportation of battlefield resources. Things like food, herb, pills and medicinal materials can be sealed and transported in scrolls. However, not everything can be sealed in a scroll, because of their size. Therefore, these things are not particularly important, Even if they were ambushed, it won't affect the battlefield. That's why they sent Minato, a genin. In general, no one will rob them to get some ordinary materials. You Naito, is that you? Minato also noticed Naito. After he got a little surprised, he smiled and said hello to Naito. Naito graduated before Minato, then he never heard any news about him, and when he came to the Rain Village, he finally met Naito. He admired Naito, he was participating in the battlefield. Yes. Naito also nodded gently at Minato. Minato felt that something was off. Naito didn't have a uniform. If he is taking a part in this war, shouldn't he be promoted first? I just graduated from the ninja school, I'm responsible for transporting tools and items. What about you Naito? They should promote you to Chunin soon. Minato nodded slightly at Naito, but there was a hint of inexplicable light in his eyes. Chunin. Naito got slightly shocked, then he couldn't help but smile. I don't know about this, but I will do my best. I didn't expect to meet you again here as two Shinobis. Naito, do you want to fight again? Minato looked at Naito with a challenging expression. Well, forget about what I just said, this is not the right time, nor the right place. Naito couldn't help but smile. Suddenly, he moved so fast toward Minato, then stopped by his side and patted his shoulder. I have something to do, let's talk again the next time. After that, Naito turned and left. Minato got stunned in his place, his expression was full of disbelieving, he couldn't move for a while. What is this speed? Minato was really shocked, he saw a lot of jonins, none had this kind of speed. Minato has one of the best nerve systems in this world, and because of this, his shock was worse than anyone. Because he could react to Naito's speed, yet his body wasn't ready yet to do such a fast movement. His body speed couldn't keep up with his reactions, in other words, if Naito was an enemy, he could easily kill him. After a while, Minato got back to his sense and smiled. I didn't expect the gap to become even bigger, I thought I've made it smaller. Naito's speed is so incredible, how did this happen? Is it because I didn't participate in this war? Thinking of this, Minato felt helpless. He knew that Naito is so talented, yet he believed that this war has sharpened his talent even more, but it was impossible for him to participate in it even if he wanted. However, once he thinks about Naito's speed, he couldn't help but feel a little bit powerless. Speed. Speed. Looking at the direction where Naito left, Minato couldn't help but whispering these words again and again. Naito went back to his room, willing to take a break. After 2 days of preparation, Naito was ready to leave the camp again. He was so concerned about Kanon and Yoriko, so he needed to see them again. Along with the war, he had a lot of things to deal with. For example, Nagato, Black Zetsu, and Uchiha Madara. Although these characters will not take part in this war, yet they cannot be considered unimportant characters. On the contrary, they are very important, they are even more important than the war itself. However, so far, there are no traces on the existing of Nagato, and Uchiha Madara and Black Zetsu should be hidden in the dark watching the war. Naito felt the pressure the moment he thought about Madara. Although Naito now is very strong, and if he encounters an Anbu captain level he would be able to fight against him. Yet this won't be enough in the face of Madara. It won't be enough even in the face of Nagato, who have the Reninjan. After all, this power belongs to the Rakuda himself. Really, there's no time to rest. Every time he thinks of Uchiha Madara and how he's watching the world from the dark looking for an opportunity to begin his plans, Naito starts having chills on the back of his neck. And this feeling is pushing Naito further to continue his path and getting stronger every time. If he wants to rest, he will need to become stronger and better than Madara, and even stronger than Kaguya. After he rested for a little time, Naito was ready to start again. He wasn't prepared to waste any more time. He started his training again. However, as he was about to start, he received an urgent call from Sakumo. "You Naito, come back immediately." An emergency call is a very rare thing, especially when it's from Sakumo. After all, he's the Anbu captain and he will not do such a reckless thing if it's not really an urgent matter. Naito put his cloak and mask on and left his room. The headquarters of Konoha's camp. Sakumo is sitting there, and there was another person wandering around the place looking so worried. Within the entire command, there was only the two of them. This is really bad. Looking at the information on the table, Sakumo shouted. "I know that already, but it's hard to deal with this situation." The man who was roaming around looked very worried. He also had a long silver hair, and he's one of the 3 future Sannin. At that time, Naito walked in wearing his mask. He looked at him and felt a little strange. He sensed some kind of familiarity, but he couldn't remember him. Naito looked at him, but he didn't pay him any attention, and rushed directly toward Sakumo and asked, "What happened?" "The Rock Village launched a surprise attack on one of our supply troops." Sakumo's tone sounded so worried as he replied to Naito, "This begins almost a half-month ago. The Rock Shinobis start to target our supply troops." Jiraiya didn't care about Naito anymore and focused on the situation itself and said with an angry tone, "We just heard that Minato's troop got attacked. It's true he's a genius, and maybe he's at the same level as a Chunin, but he won't have a chance against a whole troop." Listening to Jiraiya's words, Naito got surprised. He just saw Minato a couple of days ago. What a bad luck. Moreover, those Rock Shinobis are really brave. The place of the attack is a half-day away from the camp, yet they dared to attack us. With a serious expression Naito looked at Sakumo and said, "They were launching these attacks for almost half a month. How come we didn't do anything about it up until now?" Sakumo shook his head and with a troubled expression he said, "The Rock Village sent a very special unit for this mission. They are moving underground." Underground? Naito revealed a surprised expression, then a thoughtful one. Sakumo nodded then continued, "Yes, they are a special Earth users unit. They are wearing some special equipment, allowing them to move underground and launch a sneak attack whenever they want. And because they are also very strong in combats, even when we had some people around, they weren't able to help. Once they get underground, there's no way to stop them." Jiraiya looked at Naito and said, "Yes, this rock unit has been launching sneak attacks on us for almost 2 weeks. I was responsible of stopping them. We had several clashes up until now, but once they get underground, there's no way to attack them." Jiraiya's tone was really revealing how much it was hard for him to fight against them for these 2 weeks, and now his student has been attacked by them, which made him very angry. Although they need to appear every time they launch a surprise attack, yet we failed to defeat them every time. They are also very skilled unit and it's difficult to fight against them. Also the most important thing is how difficult it is to track their traces. We don't know where they will attack the next time, so if we want to deal with them, we will need a very fast guy who can react quickly. He said that then paused for a moment looking at Naito in a strange way. Naito was wearing his mask, so there was no way he could recognize him, but since he was summoned by Sakumo, he should be strong. Noticing that strange expression on Jiraiya's face, Sakumo nodded and said, "Well, Yuyin is very fast, you should let him join you in this mission." Oh. So you're fast, huh? Saying this, Jiraiya stared at Naito and said, "Can you use any earth releases?" "Sorry, I don't." Naito looked calm. Jiraiya stumbled the moment he heard Naito's words and he almost fell. "Hey! Sakumo, are you kidding me?" With a shock on his face, Jiraiya looked away toward Sakumo. "This won't help. Fast isn't enough against these guys." When Sakumo heard these words, he smiled and said, "Although he doesn't use the earth release, he's really stronger than what you think." Jiraiya responded with a dark line, saying, "Yet he's not stronger than you." Jiraiya didn't wait for the answer and glanced at Naito. Naito answered calmly, "Sakumo-san is stronger than me." Jiraiya had an extremely annoyed expression. "He might be strong, but lacking the use of the earth release won't help us defeating these guys. Don't you have any other Anbu than this one?" Sakumo's expression became very serious as he looked at Jiraiya, then said, "He's the most suitable person for this mission, believe in him." Jiraiya shook his head and said, "Well, he will be a good support regarding his speed." Sakumo calmly added a sentence to what Jiraiya said. "Right, he will help, yet he can also act alone according to his own decisions." "I know." Jiraiya nodded. The Anbu department is an individual force that belongs to the Anbu captain himself. Even if they assist some elite shinobi from Konoha, he will not have the right to directly order them. Therefore, Jiraiya left the camp together with Naito, and all that he was thinking of is Minato. After the previous attack, Minato should be praised for his excellent performance. If it was anyone else, in that kind of situation he wouldn't be able to escape the enemy force. And when he thought of this, he felt that someone with the same amount of talent should be able to do the same, yet he couldn't remember who it was. In the original story, there wasn't anyone with the same talent as Minato for a long time. He was the best between his peers. The only person who showed a greater talent was Hatake Kakashi, who was the youngest person who managed to join the Anbu. Soon, both of them walked out of the camp. Then the two of them speeded up. Jiraiya wanted to test Naito's speed to see if he was as good as Sakumo said. As a result, Jiraiya started to raise his speed until he reached his limit. On the other side, Naito followed him as if it was nothing. Even when he used his full speed, Naito followed him. His expression didn't even change. It was like a slap in the face. "Sure enough, your speed is very good." Seeing how he managed to follow him, he couldn't help but praise him. Then he constantly started to slow down. He really meant it when he praised him, but also he couldn't help but wish if he could use earth releases, he would have been the perfect counter-attack against the rock shinobis. He was certain that Naito's speed is really great, but once they are underground, what it's gonna do for him? Along the way, Naito seemed very quiet. One of the reasons was that he didn't think that talking to Jiraiya will help him with anything. The other is that Naito was in a very bad mood. He only rested for 2 days, then he forcibly got sent to deal with this surprising troop from the rock. Naito was a little annoyed, his eyes were really cold. This cold stare on his face shocked Jiraiya and made his heart tremble. These eyes, this presence, plus that speed, this guy is really strong, he might be even stronger than me. The opinion he had for Naito changed. Even if he wasn't good at ninjutsu, he couldn't help but respect Naito. Wherever they go, strong people earn their respect. The land of fire borders. After leaving the rain country, the sky gradually became clearer. Not far away from the borders, there was a small camp built by Konoha to deal with the rock troops' surprising attacks, located on the edge of the fire land. The rock troop didn't care to go that further in the Fireland borders, since once they launched their attack they will disappear under the ground. Therefore, their attacks are generally between the borders of the Rain and Fireland. It was during the crossing of the borders Minato encountered them. All the people who accompanied him got killed. Only Minato, who was stronger than them, managed to escape that ambush. For that reason Jiraiya got really annoyed. He went straight toward the Konoha camp and slammed Sakumo's table, forcing him to send an Anbu team to support. Although, because of the war, Minato didn't officially become his student, yet he really cared about him. Inside the temporary camp, a group of ninjas was placed on standby for defending the moment the Rock Raiders attack in any place. At that time, Minato was also in the camp. "It's Sensei." Seeing Naito, who came in with Jiraiya, a bunch of them also greeted him. Jiraiya nodded and asked, "Did those rock bastard appeared again?" A ninja reported to Jiraiya. Behind Jiraiya, Naito was standing in a very bad mood, which made his aura roaring all over the place. Some of them didn't help but look at him. Strong. Very strong. Only from his presence, they were sure that this Anbu behind Jiraiya is very strong. During this war, Naito experienced a lot of bloody battles, which made his presence even stronger than before. The aura he reveals is not the savage and bloody kind, but the violent and overbearing one. You can judge someone's power just from his presence, whether he's the assassinated kind or the frontal combat one. Jiraiya Dunno, this Anbu is. His code name is Yuyin. Jiraiya introduced Naito, then said, "He's the speed type ninja, he's here to support us, yet he doesn't use any earth techniques." Understood. Although Naito appeared to lack using the earth release, the ninjas in the room didn't dare to reveal any expression that can be understood, as they are looking down on him. In the black crowd, Minato was standing there frowning at Naito. He didn't help but feel some sense of familiarity. This person, it seems as if I saw him somewhere. However, he's really strong. Just as the expression of Minato got lost in the confused faces of the others, the people in the room started to discuss the plan. In a matter of fact, the Shinobis of Konoha are not bad users of the earth release. However, compared to the Shinobis of the rock, who are specialists, they are not good enough. Moreover, those people have some special equipment which makes them stay for a long time underground. If they try and chase them down, they will all end up dead. After a long discussion, they come out with nothing but a headache. Jiraiya was trying this whole time, but Naito in the other hand didn't say a word. "Do you have any good ideas?" "It's very simple, once they're up, they will all get killed." Naito responded calmly. Suddenly, all the people in the room had their expression changed to a really weird one. "When they will reappear, they will get killed. If it was this easy, then why did we have this gather in the first place?" These words are based on nothing. He can't even use earth releases. This is felt really awkward. At this moment, a voice broke the silence. "The rock troop have appeared again." When the news came over, the atmosphere of the entire camp changed and became really tense. The only one who didn't have a similar expression was Naito. The moment he heard the news, a cold stare appeared on his face. The ninja reported the exact location of their attack in a very fast way. Jiraiya immediately looked toward his team and shouted, "Everyone, come with me." "What?" As he was about to complete his sentence, he stopped, then his expression changed. Naito, who was sitting right next to him a moment ago, disappeared. When did he leave? He's really fast. He regained his focus, then commanded everyone to follow him. Naito is a great support of the team, yet he cannot use earth release. There's no way he can chase them down, they needed to hurry. The borders between the rain and the fire land. In front, you can clearly see the cloudy sky of the rain country. Even if there was still some sunshine, it still was carrying a very heavy pressure. In a particular place under this heavy pressure, there was a really great killing instinct roaming around the place. The two groups were having a fierce battle. At first glance, you can figure out the identity of the other group since they were all covered in mud and dirt. They didn't have a large number, they were about 20 people. However, almost all of these 20 people are Jonins, and the one is leading them is an elite Jonin. They are very good at earth release, and they are especially very good at moving underground, very quick on launching sneak attacks, and they can retreat at any time. They are an extremely flexible unit, and it's one of the special cards of the Rock Village. Yet they didn't have a large number. The Konoha side had only a dozen people, and many of them are only Chunins, so it was hardly a battle. The supplies were thrown on the ground all over the place. The Rock Shinobis didn't look interested in these supplies, after all, they were nothing special. They were gonna destroy them anyway, or they would use them to make some traps. The Konoha supply troop was already struggling, they only had a few people left, and they were all Chunins, they couldn't hold them anymore. Hurry up already, the white-haired bastard will send some of his guys soon. As they heard the words of their captain, they rushed toward them and killed every one of them. Captain, what do we do now? Should we go back down? Well, we can't go without leaving a gift for our friends, let's prepare some traps to welcome them. The captain seemed to have a grudge against Sakumo's side, he said that while he revealed a hint of mockery. So what if he's strong, he won't be able to beat us. Understood. The Rock Shinobis responded to his order, then they start preparing the traps. But in the next moment, an Anbu appeared far away. The Anbu was flashing as he was moving at an extremely high speed, with every flashing he was covering a very long distance, it seemed like he will reach them at the next moment. Who is that? How can he be this fast? Bunch of them took some steps back. In fact, they are not that good at frontal combats, they are only good at assassination attacks, so they got really frightened. If they get stuck in a combat, they will have a hard time to deal with it. Therefore, as Naito's figure was rushing over toward them, the ninjas of the rock troop didn't have any thoughts of fighting back. Even if it was only one person, which is Naito. Captain, what should we do about the supplies? It's okay, he's alone. Destroy the supplies then withdraw, I will stop him, it's only one person. The captain of the troop blinked at high speed, then he started printing some hand signs very quickly. At this time, Naito came really close. Earth release, rock pressure. Boom. The earth suddenly burst down and cracked in front of him, then a block from the ground got thrown toward Naito. Crashed. The ground continued on cracking, then it started waving. However, in the face of this technique, Naito didn't think for a moment to retreat or hide, he didn't even stop, he continued on moving. Without any hesitation, Naito rushed toward the rocks, then suddenly he summoned his Tsunade sword, and then with both hands, he struck. Crack! The blurry white halo flashed as he waved his hand, then the big block of rock got cut into two halves. The waving ground got split in the middle along with the big block of rock. Then Naito rushed at high speed toward the enemy captain, who didn't have time to react. What? He cut my technique. The captain got stunned in his place. This was unusual, normally he would have blocked or dodged, but to cut it this easily, this is just too incredible. Run! The captain knew that he didn't have any chance against Naito, he directly printed a hand sign, then his whole body started to sink into the ground. It looked as if the ground has turned into a swamp, and in just a second, his whole body started to disappear in the ground. But in the next moment, Naito dashed toward him so fast and kicked the ground with his foot. Boom! The ground got burst and cracked open. Naito gained a great vision of the captain from above. Shit! The captain had a shocked expression when he saw the ground cracking open. He thought that he already escaped. At that time, his head was still appearing on the ground. It was a matter of a second before he gets completely sunk again in the ground. All that he needed to do is to block the next attack. His arms were covered with a weird thick layer of iron. Obviously, those were the pieces of equipment they were using to move underground. He was about to use them to block Naito's attack. But in the face of Naito's attack, blocking just won't work. Crack! He waved his Tsunade sword, and the blood got splashed on the ground. The captain of the troop almost managed to escape, but Naito's speed and power stopped him. Both his head and arms got cut, leaving blood all over the place. Whoosh! In the next moment, Naito waved his sword to get rid of the remaining blood on the blade. They've escaped, huh? After he took a glance on the field, he found out that all of the remaining members of the troop have already escaped. What a bunch of rats! After shaking his head, Naito flashed toward their last location and lifted his leg, smashing the whole ground under him. Bang! The madness of the shock reached the deepest places underground. It crashed and broke the whole ground, trembling and shaking the whole place. Although Naito wasn't a user of the earth release, his shocks were more effective. At that moment, the remaining 19 members of the troop were hiding underground. The captain didn't come down yet. It seems he's still fighting against that Anbu. What do we do now? A few of them looked at each other while they didn't know what to do next. But in the next moment, a horrible force of shock came from above with a strong impact, crushing them along. Not good. What is this power? Everyone felt that they will need to do something against this technique, otherwise, they will end up all dead. They didn't have time to sink more deeply in the ground. Earth release, the art of hardening. Earth release, the severity formation. Earth release, the ascending rocks. With no hesitation, everyone started printing and casting ninjutsu. After they infused their chakra into the ground, the whole area above them turned into a hard big rock, harder than the iron, which started to block Naito's shock. Crack! Their formation started to crack and shatter, but they were repairing it every time until they managed to block the entire force. The rock shinobis looked at each other in a touch of relief. At that time, the entire ground got destroyed, but there was a huge block of rocks above protecting them. It should be fine. What do we do next? The captain didn't come yet. He might be captured by Konoha. I think we need to retreat for now. Okay. They looked at each other and nodded as they were ready to leave. Suddenly, their expressions changed. A greater force of shock slammed down on them, destroying the rock formation above their heads. At that time, Naito was aware that his first attack got blocked, and with a smug grin on his face, he kicked the ground several times. You blocked the first one, so what will you against a bunch of them? Bang! There was a big hole under his feet, and the entire place was shaking and trembling so hard, while cracks spread out in every direction, forming the shape of a spider web. In the distance, the troop led by Jiraiya was advancing toward the location while a bunch of them had some stressed expression. Did he manage to stop them? I hope that he managed to kill some of them. The shinobis of Konoha were advancing at high speed. Jiraiya, who was running in front of them, looked back and said, "Don't talk, focus on running, we need to reach them immediately. He doesn't use any earth techniques, he will suffer against them, we need to support him. Yes. Understood. All the Shinobis responded at once, then they speeded up. Naito continued on smashing the ground, and the roaring sound of the shock got stronger. Boom. 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 The ground continued on cracking, and the entire area became a mess. The rock Shinobis underground were already on the verge of collapsing due to the horrible power of the shocks. Even if the ground itself weakens some of the power along with the long distance down, still it was really hard for them to resist it. More than a dozen were joining forces to block the shocks. In the end, after sending countless of shocks toward them, their defenses finally collapsed, and the whole area above them got destroyed, leaving them defenseless, and finally, they got all killed. What a bad way to die. This has happened at the same time when the ground under Naito got completely destroyed, leaving a very big hole, forcing him to stop and jump away. In the distance, Konoha's troop finally arrived. Seeing the situation on the battlefield, Jiraiya, who was the first to arrive, had a very surprised expression. The entire area has been destroyed by Naito, and that only proves the ferocity of battle, yet there was no corpse on the ground. He didn't kill any one of them. He shook his head, then his surprised expression became a disappointed one. He slowed down his speed, then walked toward Naito. Naito looked at Jiraiya with a sad expression, then said, "Sorry, I couldn't save our supplier troop, they were all dead when I came here." Listening to Naito's words and seeing the sad expression he had, Jiraiya couldn't help but comforting him. "I feel you, you couldn't save them, I've been in your shoes several times before, I even watched them die in front of me one of the times, I couldn't stop them." The moment he said this sentence, Jiraiya clenched his fist in hatred. "Don't worry, we will get them the next time you win." When he heard this sentence, Naito's expression changed to a weird one. After looking at Jiraiya, he turned and said, "The mission is already completed, I will head back first." After all, Naito cannot leave without going back and reporting. Jiraiya looked at the back of Naito as he was leaving with a horrified expression. What did he mean when he said the mission is already completed? Just when he was about to stop Naito and ask, the shouting for another shinobi made him stop. "Jiraiya Dunno, come quickly to see." He frowned slightly, then he walked toward that ninja. He got shocked the moment he saw that horrifying scene. It was a body dragged down in the ground with its head laying on the ground. Although the corpse was covered in blood, yet he recognized him immediately. He wanted to kill him for every moment with his bare hands for the last half-month. He's dead. With a shock on his face, Jiraiya turned back to look at Naito, but he already left at that moment. There's no doubt that Anbu killed him. He thought that Naito couldn't achieve anything. He didn't expect that he had already killed the captain of the rock troop. Jiraiya froze in his place. Wait, did he said that the mission is already completed? Did he? He turned and widened his eyes. This battlefield, it looks like it was smashed by an enormous power. In the next moment, Jiraiya started printing hand signs. Earth release, the art of uplifting. Crack. The grounds cracked open and started pushing back everything inside back on the ground until a bunch of corpses appeared. The shinobis of Konoha got all stunned the moment they saw this scene, then they rushed over, counting them. Soon, they confirmed the number, it's 19. Plus the body of the captain that they just found, it's 20. The whole troop got destroyed. In an instant, everyone felt the cold sweat on the back of their necks. Silence. They kept this way for a long time until one of them broke the silence, saying, "That Anbu is so strong. He just destroyed the whole troop that we've failed to stop for more than half a month." At that moment, Jiraiya's eyes were shining with a bit of shock. He couldn't help but admire him. He was telling the truth when Sakumo said that he is the most suitable ninja for this mission. In one attack he destroyed the whole troop who was giving them a headache for half a month. It's not simple to kill a troop of Jonins with this kind of formation and equipment. It's really difficult to defeat such a troop in this short time. This guy is so strong, he shouldn't be just a nameless Anbu, maybe I already know him. The Anbu codenamed Yuyin, who this person is, he seems familiar, but I can't remember him. Jiraiya looked at the direction where Naito left with a confused expression. Iwagakyo. Onaki was relaxing drinking some hot tea. Recently, the outcomes for the Rock Village were really good. Not only they reduced the casualties to the minimum, they also managed to suppress the movements of the Rain and the Sand Village. And more importantly, his troop was attacking Konoha's supplying units for more than a half month, cutting out their resources. Because of this, Onaki was very comfortable for a short time. Whoosh! Just as he was drinking his tea, a scout ninja suddenly appeared in his office and bowed toward him. "Sashikage-sama, there's something wrong." "What is it?" "The surprising troop got wiped out." "What?" Just as he was drinking his tea, Onaki squirted it out and yelled at the scout in front of him. "What did you say?" The scout was too afraid to report the news to Onaki. His voice trembled as he said, "The surprising troop successfully managed to cut Konoha's supplies for almost a half month until they sent an Anbu to deal with them." "How come one Anbu from Konoha can destroy the whole troop by himself?" Onaka had an incredible shock on his face. "This is impossible, even if it's a shinobi from Konoha, there's no way he could handle such a troop all by himself. The information we had from our scouts are certain, he was alone." The ninja didn't want to say no more words. Onaki looked so angry. The atmosphere became really gloomy. Onaki kept quiet for a long time, then he yelled, asking, "Who is this Anbu?" "Sorry, we don't have any information about the identity of the Anbu. It seems to be top secret even within the shinobis of Konoha. We cannot get access to such a level security." "Forget it, you can go." "Yes." The ninja looked relieved. He quickly left the Sashikage office. Onaki closed his eyes and spaced out while he had a very stressed expression. That's it for this video, guy. Hope you like the video. Like, share and subscribe the channel. Also tell me your recommendations in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching.